Peace. Welcome back. Peace to all the listeners out there. Assalamu alaikum to all the Muslim listeners out there. Welcome back to another audio essay episode, whatever you want to call it, of Muslim and Black in America. I'm your host, Bilal Abdullah. Hopefully y'all had a good week. My week was good, except that it's been cold in a mug. Cold as hell. You know, a teacher told me that the saying cold as hell seems kind of oxymoronish, but I've heard that in hell that there are places that are extremely cold. So cold that it basically burns you. That's how cold it is. There's areas of the hellfire where it's extremely cold. And the evidence they gave was that hellfire breathes out and breathes in. So that was their evidence, but and that's just somebody else's opinion, but you don't have to believe that. But that kind of makes sense, because have you ever been outside and it's so cold that stuff burns? Or touch some dry ice and that stuff burns your fingers? But anyway, like I said, hopefully y'all had a good week. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But did y'all remember the week before last I spoke on the Dajjals of the conscious community? And in that I mentioned the hadith about how most of the followers of the Dajjal will be the hypocrites, Jews, and women. I mentioned how the system of today is basically the Dajjal system already set up. If you don't know what Dajjal is, Dajjal means the Antichrist. And his system is already set up, or very close to it, and it is ready for him to appear and take control. I mentioned how one of the ways he is doing this is the feminist movement. Women's sexual liberation, allegedly, and other forms of liberalism, which is really Satanism. And I had some chick on Twitter telling me, because I was saying how witchcraft is just Satanism, all of it. And then she gonna tell me, you obviously don't know what the difference between witchcraft and Satanism is. No, you don't know, all right? Chill out, relax, and do some research, because it's all one and the same. Ain't no such thing as a good witch. And all that stuff is just magic and contacting jinn. If you got crystals in your house and you're using crystals for positive energy, that's just a conjuring device. That's all it is. You're just a basic low-level magician. That's all you are. You don't even know it yet. You think you're just using them for positive vibes and stuff. No. You're conjuring up jinn. You're conjuring up spirits to come around you. That's what those crystals is for. That's why you charge them in the moonlight and all that other weirdo stuff. So don't try to sit up here and tell me that it's not Satanism. Yes, it is. Once you start contacting jinn, you done went Satanist mode. You done went extreme shirk mode. See, the only people you should be asking, only people you're allowed to ask for help in this life is, first off, Allah. You're allowed to ask Allah for help, and Allah alone. You don't go to asking Jesus for help. You don't go to asking Muhammad for help. You don't go to Muhammad's grave, sallallahu wasallam, and start asking him to pray for you or ask him for things. A'udhu billah. No, you go to Allah. Then the other person that you can go to for help are people who are alive. So righteous people who are alive. You go to your imam and say, Imam, could you make dua for me? Or you go to your buddy who's always making tahajjud, and you notice that he's a pious brother or sister, and you say, hey, could you make dua for me? You're only allowed to ask people who are alive for help. Or you ask a friend, hey, could you throw me some cash till next week? That's allowable. But one of the peoples you're not allowed to go to and ask for help, that Allah has forbidden for you, are the jinn. You're not allowed to go to them, whether you're going to them to ask them to do something for you that's good. Even if it's good, it don't matter. You're not supposed to go to them. That has been forbidden for you. And once you start going to the jinn for help, or once you start conjuring up jinn, or using tools to conjuring up jinn, you're starting to go away from the deen, and you're starting to be into shirk. You're starting to be into Satanism. That's all it is. But I got off on a tangent. But basically, all of that is Satanism. And basically, by calling the women to their lusts and desires, they will all follow it. They're all going to follow it, even though it's the path to hell. Now, Recently in the news, there was a story of Rahaf Muhammad. She is a 18-year-old from Saudi Arabia. She fled KSA because at first it seemed like she fled, the news stories I was reading, because her family was allegedly forcing her into an arranged marriage. And at first, although I didn't agree with her running away so far without a mahram, I kind of understood why she did it, because you are not allowed to force people to marry in Islam. You can have arranged marriages if you want, but if they see each other and meet each other, and they get to know each other and one or both of them not feeling each other, then you can't force them to be married. Islam did away with such things like that. But then other stories started coming out that her family was abusive, but they never said how her family was abusive. She never said how her family was doing her wrong, so it was weird on that. Then we started, I started scratching my chin like, something is sounding real fishy about this. Then I saw the media of the West starting to prop her up. I was like, yeah, it's something definitely going on with this. She wasn't wearing hijab, and that was the first sign. And, I learned something about tabarruj. Another tangent, y'all. I learned something about tabarruj. I gotta think of the specific verse because I'm going off on a slight tangent, but in the Quran where it's talking about to not go out and show yourselves in the days of ignorance, about the women covering themselves up and putting on their jilbab and covering their bodies and not displaying themselves like they did in the time of ignorance. You can look that verse up. In the tafsir of Ibn Kathir, it says that tabarruj, which means to show yourself, or like in the time of ignorance, was women who would basically go out and show off their bodies, or go out and have some of their hair showing. They wouldn't wrap themselves all the way up fully. They go out and sashay their hips and things of that nature. So I'm sick of it, man. Y'all with these drop top hijabs, quit that, man. You know what you're doing. You trying to be slick with it. You're not slick. You can't pull the Mickey on Allah. You can't be slick with Allah. Come on with that. And I understand. It's one of a woman's greatest weaknesses. One of them is that she loves attention. So that's something that she has to struggle with her life, especially dealing with hijab, because a woman wants to have attention. So I understand. I don't understand, but I understand the struggle of wearing the hijab, especially when you in the West and you got all these women showing off their bodies, even though they not right in doing that. So I understand the struggle, but come on, man. And then I also know people that it takes two. It takes two. People sit up here and say, and I will say this too, no matter what a woman wears, she should not be raped, period, blood, period. A woman should not be raped no matter what she wears. Now, at the same time, Allah sent down the verses of hijab so that the women would be known as righteous women. Because one of the verses of hijab, the reason it came down, because the women would go out to Fajr early in the morning. But this is before the hijab verses came down. And they would go out to Fajr early in the morning and go to the masjid. And when they was on their way back, some of the kafir men would harass them and try to get at them. And they said, no, we're believing. When we're Muslim, we don't do that. And they said, oh, I didn't know you weren't Muslim women because y'all were dressed like the regular women. We thought y'all were, pretty much whores. Excuse my language, but that's what they said. So Allah sent down the verses of covering themselves up. So that's letting you know that what you wear makes people treat you accordingly. Should a person rape you? No. But if somebody views you as a promiscuous woman, if you're out here wearing red heels, spandex tight, all of this stuff, got your buns out, then I'm going to assume that you're quite promiscuous. And I'm not wrong for assuming that. Sorry, I'm not. Because the uniform you put on is what I'm going to assume about you. If I see somebody with a badge, a gun, a police uniform, sitting inside of a cop car, and I walk up to him and say, hey man, could you help me out? I just got robbed, man. He turns to me like, what? How dare you assume that I'm a police officer? Because you see what I'm saying? But another tangent, man. So she wasn't wearing hijab, and that was the first sign that let me know. Then she basically jumped ahead of a whole bunch of other folks who wanted asylum and was fast-tracked and has been recently granted asylum in, I think, Canada. And the icing on the cake was recently how she's been seen with midriff dresses, uncovering her hair, and they bragging all on the media about how she's eating pork. She even got a post on Snapchat talking about how good bacon is. They got her smoking on some of the finest loud out of raw papers on social media too. She's sipping red wine like most of the lonely liberal feminists do as well. So I was like, oh, okay, I see what this is. This is propaganda. She's talking about how free and honored she feels after, I'm assuming, giving up Islam. I guess that's, your apostate meal. When you give up your deen, they give you a plate of bacon, they give you some red wine, and a sack of 20 twin. So, that's really what it is. Like, she wasn't being abused because they never said how. She probably just felt abused because she had to follow the rules of Islam in her household, so it made her feel abused. I gotta pray again. I gotta wake up at 6 a.m. to pray Fajr. I'm abused. This is abuse. You see, she must have fell in love with the kufrdom from TV shows, music, etc. And she must have fell in love with the Satanism that the Dajjal system was offering her and calling her to. And I say Satanism because that's what it all boils down to. She might not even know that she's going towards Satanism. She might think she's going towards feminism or she's going towards liberalism. It's all boils down to Satanism. And, and she was excited by that and the freedoms it offered. She said she feared being killed by her family for not conforming to their religion, which basically lets you know that, yep, she left her religion. She came to Canada and now she's saying how honored and free she's feeling. And that's what Shaitan offers you with Satanism, that you will have the freedom to do whatever you want, do what thou wilt. It's amazing to me how the words of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam are so fitting, yet she can't see the truth and wisdom of what the Prophet said. She can't see the kufr of the system she's running to. What did the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam say? He said that the life of this world is a prison for the believer, but for the non-Muslim, it is a paradise. And that hadith can be found in Muslim. And this is how a lot of these people who leave the deen are. A great teacher told me that most times when people leave the deen, they leave it for their own evil and corrupted lust and desires. And I see that what he said was true. When you talk to these people, the general gist of what they're saying is, the religion of Islam is too restrictive. I felt like a prisoner. And then they try to play the self-righteous card. Like if they still believe in the God, they will say something to the effect of, well, God wouldn't want me to feel restricted. He would want me to be free to be who I am. Or if they one of those people who left the deen and now they don't believe in God at all, they'll say something like, well, I can be a good person without God. All I have to do is treat people right, blah, and blah, 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 blah. And, the world of kufr embraces them wholeheartedly. They love to promote that someone has left the deen so that they can influence more to do so. See how we honor them? And as you see now, the young lady is being, quote unquote, honored all on the media as a sign of courageousness, being a strong woman, having her own mind, etc., etc. And this is like, this is similar to what people would do, in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When he was in Medina, the people who were hypocrites and they wanted to leave, they were allowed to go back to the Kafirs in Mecca. They was allowed to go back, and the Kafirs in Mecca was happy to welcome them back. It's like, hey, yeah, you coming back? Because they was happy that they left Islam. Just like now today, when somebody leaves Islam and go back to Kufr, or goes to Kufr, they happy. They honor you, quote unquote. But what does Allah say in Surah 439 of such people who think that, you know, coming to Kufr, to disbelieve, leaving their deen, and that they're getting so much honor from these people? What does Allah say? He says, those who take disbelievers as allies instead of the believers, do they seek with them honor through power? But indeed, honor belongs to Allah entirely. You see, this is what they forget. She ran away from her religion to the protection of the kuffar. And, you know, she feels so happy and honored. They accept me now. I'm one of them. I'm not one of you lowly people who are in prison. I'm free. And then, you know, you have those sincere Muslims like you all who are listening to this now, and others who are calling her back to Islam and saying, no, believe. They're telling her to believe and come back to the deen. What did the Prophet say about the Dajjal, the Antichrist? He said the Dajjal will come with paradise and hellfire in his hands. But the paradise that he has is really the hellfire. And the hellfire that he has is really the paradise. So, you know, you have the sincere Muslims calling her back to the deen and saying, believe, you know, surely the paradise that these people are offering you is really the hellfire. And you know what her response and people like hers response is? It's as Allah says in Surah 2 verse 13, and when it is said to them, believe as the people have believed, they say, should we believe as the foolish have believed? Unquestionably, it is they who are the foolish, but they know it not. So, you know, what also confirms my teacher's words is also the hadith of the Prophet found in Muslim and Tirmidhi, where the Prophet ﷺ said that paradise is surrounded with hardships and the hellfire is surrounded with temptations. It's also amazing how she skipped all the other people seeking asylum. I guess when you giving up your deen, you know, they give you a first-class ticket to the front of the line. In fact, a sister on Twitter was talking about that when people do seek asylum, especially from Muslim countries, they will actually consider you more if you actually do speak against your religion. But just as the Prophet said about the Dajjal, you know, he said his hellfire is really paradise and his paradise is really hellfire. It is similar with the dunya and restricting yourself for the sake of Allah. The life of this world to a believer is a prison. It is something one has to be patient with. If you are in prison right now for a year, and you know you got to do a year straight, no bail, no nothing, what can you do but be patient with it? And, you know, try to perfect yourself and focus on yourself in that time. I mean, you could try to escape, and that will only cause more trouble for you if you get caught. Or you could get into the mischief of the jail to pass your time, but that could cause you trouble as well or get you killed. So you have to be patient with it. It is similar with yourself and the dunya, but you know, there's a twist. Sometimes it is hard to be patient on righteousness. There are 3 types of patience, if I could say it like that. One is the patience for Allah's decree, you know, for his destiny. For example, a car crash, a family member dying. Then there is the patience to stay upon obeying Allah's commands, like Salah every day, all 5 of them. And then there is a patience when dealing with staying away from what Allah said to stay away from. This patience may be hard, similar to how hard it would be to deal with actual jail. But the twist is, this is the jail one must put oneself into in order to attain peace, happiness, and tranquility in one's heart. This jail, unlike the other, the more you stay in it, the more peace you attain. And if you want to get deep, you know, I be reading sort of Kaf a lot during, you know, on every Friday. You should as well, inshallah. And if you want to get deep, this is the cave to me. That's the cave for us. For us. They really went into a cave and fell asleep, and that miracle really happened. But I'm saying, in the spiritual sense, that is our cave, if you want to get deep. The cave represents, in my opinion, going into the jail of being patient in all three ways in regards to Allah. Because they went into the cave for real, and they had to deal with patience, and they had to deal with patience of leaving their people behind. They had to deal with patience on the journey. So you see what I'm saying? From the outside looking in, what did Allah say about the people of the cave if you were to see them? Allah says in Surah 18, verse 18, if you had looked at them, you would have turned from them in flight and been filled by them with terror. In the Tafsir of Ibn Kathir, he states that Allah made them look real scary and dreadful, so that if you looked at them, you would be filled with terror and you wouldn't even come close to them. You'd run away from them. Now think about it. How does the average person who is a kafir, or even, you know, a Muslim, but they're very far away from the deen, how do they look at, you know, a kafir who follows his lusts and desires and doesn't submit to Allah? How does he look at the pious believer? They turn away from them in flight. Being that righteous is scary to them. It's dreadful. Oh my God, I would never want to starve myself from sun up to sundown for 30 days. Oh, I would dread to have to give up bacon and alcohol. So they turn back in flight. But what you don't know is those people in the cave that Allah made to sleep for over 300 years, they were at peace that whole time. They were asleep. When you sleep, you at rest, you're tranquil, you're at peace, you know. And this is the same way the believer is inside his own cave, inside his own prison. So really, this prison, this fire you have to go through is really paradise. Now, I wonder if this is Canada also trying to show America that, see, we're more tolerant, allegedly. We let people into our country who seek asylum while you're trying to build a wall to keep them out. But to me, that ain't what this wall is about. You know, the word has already been out. We know most immigrants come through the air. So what is this border for? First, it's a sign, you know, to Trump's racist base that, hey, I got that done for you. It's a symbol of white supremacy. The wall really will stop nothing. Drugs will still come in. People will still come in. Sex trafficking will still go on. It won't stop anything. It's just to soothe the insecurities of the Caucasian supremacists. Him shutting the government down is him showing his base that, hey, I'm going hard for y'all, you know. I'm trying my best to get this wall for y'all. So that way, even if he doesn't get what he wants, he can campaign on, I tried hard, and blame the Democrats. And this is really just a show, you know, some WWE stuff. They keep us in a frenzy while they yuck it up together behind the scenes, laughing at us that we fell for it again. I mean, don't forget, they are all on the same team. Democrats and Republicans are just two wings of the same bird. They're using this word wall to throw us off. It's just a barrier. Don't forget, back in the day, Obama and them was talking about building better fences on the border. So they both on the same page. Don't be fooled. The Obamas, the Clintons were all down with better borders. So it makes me think, you know, what is all this hoopla about? This is a smoke screen. What's going on behind it? What's going on behind this government shutdown and craziness surrounding that? You know, they want us to take attention away from 45, who's looking like that impeachment is right around the corner. Y'all see the Washington Post newspapers that were being handed out around the White House? It was like some fake Washington Post newspapers. The people who did it were basically trolling, but that should give you a sign of what's going on behind the scenes. But what's funny is if you read the fake article, it says after months of women protesting, he left office. So we right back to what we was talking about at the beginning with Rahaf Muhammad about, feminism and all of that stuff. It just comes full circle. And what's crazy is even though the government shut down, they still taking our taxes. And even though the government shut down, the cabinet secretaries, Vice President Pence, and top aides are going to receive a $10,000 raise. Now, allegedly, Vice President Pence said he wasn't going to take it, but whatever. And that's due to some alleged fluke of a loophole in the law, which also means to me that a lot of this money 45 wants for the wall is really just going to go to his friends. $5 billion after they just signed off on what, $2.5 billion to you earlier. Yeah, you giving kickbacks to your homies. I know how that works. But remember, like I said last episode, the Hegelian dialectic. They are creating chaos to give you their solution, and we're gonna see what it will be. In the meantime, people will start losing their food stamp benefits, and many workers won't be paid. But never forget, though, that even though 45 may have shut down the government, always remember that Allah is Al-Fatah, the one who opens. During this time, let's remember to help out our fellow friends and associates, because you never know who may be needing help. But I will also say this too, be on alert and have your protection. Since people like TSA agents aren't getting paid, and soon people's benefits may be cut off, that means our airspace is at risk for infiltration. And as well, you got to understand that most people who receive food stamps and other benefits are Caucasians. So we might see a surge in white identity extremist attacks. Agent Johnson, who's listening to this episode, watch out for those white identity extremists. Also, I heard on NPR the other day that federal jails, the guards aren't being paid in many of them, yet they still have to come in. And the crazy part about it is they not getting paid, but the inmates they have to guard over are still getting their little checks from the work they do. So I know they hating. So I expect some abusiveness to be going down towards the inmates from the guards who they're guarding them and not getting paid. But overall, keep your head on a swivel and keep that blicky ready for self-defense if necessary, because there's so many ways that this whole situation could go. Oh, and don't forget, there's a continuity of government plan that was passed back in 2007, and the ability to enact a shadow government in the event of a terrorist attack on the Capitol. Makes you wonder if this is a setup for the Dajjal to arrive, because within this plan of the hidden government or shadow government, they can make an unelected official outside of the legal line of succession into the president. And we just recently declared victory in Syria and are supposed to be allegedly pulling out of Syria as well. And in some hadiths say that the Dajjal is supposed to appear from in between Syria and Iraq. But Allah knows best. Like I said, there's many different scenarios that could be going on. But speaking of presidents and whatnot, we got this 2020 elections coming up next year, and I'm calling it now, y'all. Kamala Harris, 5-0. She's gonna win. This is my prediction. I could definitely be wrong, but we shall see if Allah gives us long enough life. Some people say, nah, she won't win. It takes time to establish herself. And when they learn about her conduct as a prosecutor, it will be a turnoff for many. But I beg to differ, because black folk and folk in general supported Hillary, and she had more popular votes. And she got all kind of blood on her hands. She got the Pizzagate, stealing of money. Her and her husband helped swell the jails with black folk during his presidency. And Negroes love them some Bill Clinton. And about her establishing herself, man, that means nothing. Presidents are selected, not elected. And she is the perfect selectee. She is racially ambiguous to appease the black people and to please the people of color. She's the daughter of immigrants and has no ancestral connection to Native Black Americans. And because of that, she'll probably see no problem with backing the police. What she does, who legally murder black men dang near every day. And she's a daughter of immigrants. That gives her the connection to this, this whole wall situation. And it will give preferential treatment to immigrants, not Americans over, it's going to give preferential treatment to immigrants who aren't Americans over native black Americans. She's going to run with that one. Then on top of that, she has a white husband, and if you look at these movies that have been coming out lately and how such a relationship is praised nowadays, even in commercials, the movie with old girl from Black Panther with the white guy from, I think that movie was called Ransom, that the white guy played in, but they're in a movie together too. I think the movie's called The Widows or something like that. And then there's a movie that came out called The Hate U Give with that actor, Amandla Stenberg. In that movie, she has a white boyfriend. And she got another movie where she falls in love with some racist or something. This is the propaganda push they are pushing on black women to run to the arms of the Caucasian man. So it's right in line with that. She supports the LGBTQRSTUV, so she's right in line with that. And then we again come back full circle to what? The feminism. Pushing the mother goddess, the black liberal feminist female ideology onto the masses. While at the same time, we have the demonizing of men and the black man in general. So you can see how this all works together for their programming, which is why I predict she will win. Especially after someone like 45 who has really no political training whatsoever, people are going to flock to her. And the result of this will be more destruction of the family, because women, and especially black women, will have their egos inflated because there is a woman president, and the masculine principle will be totally not respected or submitted to. So you think there's chaos now? There would be more if she wins. And remember what the prophet said, and I'm going to end it on this. No people who appoint a woman as their leader will ever prosper. And that is in Bukhari. And that has been M.A.B.I.A, Muslim and Black in America, with your host, Bilal Abdullah. Thank you for tuning in. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share. If you want to donate, the link is in the description, all that good stuff. And inshallah, I'll get back with y'all when I get back with y'all. Peace and assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.